of important trust in this land. Let thy blessing descend upon us here in this house assembled. Grant us that we may treat and consider all matters that have come under our deliberation in so just and faithful a manner, to promote thy honor and glory, to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of this country, and of those whose interests thou hast committed to our church. Amen.
Communication from the chair.
Good morning, good afternoon rather, honorable members. Today we are to commence the debate on the 2024 estimates of revenue and expenditure of the Republic of the Gambia for the period 1st January to 31st December 2024, both days inclusive. As we are all aware, the 2024 estimates of revenue and expenditure was tabled by the Honorable Minister for Finance and Economic Affairs on Friday, 17th November 2023, and seconded by the Honorable Deputy Majority Leader and Member for Old Yundu. Thereafter, pursuant to Orders 86-6 of the Standing Orders, the sitting was adjourned to give honorable members adequate time to review the document. Accordingly, the Office of the Clerk, with support from partners, engaged members on a retreat for an expert and technical scrutiny of this important document. The estimates before us today are not mere numbers. They are a blueprint for progress, a testament to our commitment to economic prudence, social justice, and sustainable development. Crafting a budget requires foresight, diligence, and a deep understanding of the needs of our diverse population. It is a delicate balancing act wherein we must allocate resources efficiently, address pressing concerns, and invest in the future without burdening our citizens unduly. Honorable members, in addition and in accordance with Standing Order 84, various committees of this Assembly considered budgets of sector ministries and other institutions to determine and make recommendations regarding their budget allocations to FPAC. Accordingly, before the debate would commence, FPAC shall today lay their consolidated report before the Assembly, pursuant to Order 84-2B of the Standing Orders. Honorable members, this report will guide the debate as well as the Committee of Supply in the coming days. Honorable members, the earlier version of the 2024 estimates of revenue and expenditure of the Republic of the Gambia for the period 1st January to 31st December 2024, both days inclusive, had slight errors, and a new version is reprinted and circulated to you all. On that note, honorable members, I wish to thank you all for your dedication and commitment to duty so far during this marathon session, which started since Friday, the 17th of November, 2023. I thank you all. Clerk, may we proceed, please.
Correction and approval of records of votes and proceedings of the National Assembly sitting of Friday, 17th November 2023.
Honorable members, the record of votes and proceedings of the National Assembly sitting of Friday, 17th November 2023 is before us for consideration and approval. Can any honorable member please move that the said record of votes and proceedings be considered and approved? Honorable nominated member Maimouna Sise.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I rise to move the records of votes and proceedings of the National Assembly sitting of Friday, 17 November 2023 to be considered.
Thank you. Honorable members, any seconder? Honorable member for Kiang Central.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I rise to second the motion.
Honorable members, it has been moved and seconded that the record of votes and proceedings of the National Assembly sitting of Friday, 17th November 2023 be considered and approved. Honorable members, as usual, we look at the record of votes and proceedings page by page, and honorable members may want to make their observations and comments. Beginning, of course, with page 1 of the report. All right, honorable members, we move to page 2. Okay. Honorable members, we can now move to page 3. Honorable members, we move to page 4. And the last page, page 5, honorable members. Woolley East.
Yes, thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I know you made a comment, but is that the communication from the Speaker? What is in page 5? I think that was a comment, but it's not the communication that comes from you. Where is the communication?
Page 5, what are you saying, honorable member?
I'm saying the communication from the chair is part of the agenda, and you've made a communication on that day, but that is not captured, but a comment is captured on the page 5. Is that the communication from the chair? Is that all on that day?
still not with you. You know, you are on page 5. That's Friday, 17th November.
Yes.
What is missing, or what should be regulated, what should be worked on that page?
No, I'm saying on the 17th, you made a comment, you made a communication.
Yeah, but
we've agreed that any communication made by you should be distributed to all members. So I'm saying whether this comment is your communication on that day? Is that where they are going to put it now? Or they are going to give a separate...
We comment.
In accordance with Order 86.6 of the Standing Orders. Then you went on. I know that's a comment you've made, but is that the communication?
No, that is different from circulating the communication from the speaker.
Yes, so where is the...
You know, if you look at page 3, am I right? Communication from the care.
Yeah.
You heard the speaker delivered a statement. Now, and I think you requested that those statements be distributed to members. Yeah, that is different from this one.
Up to now, no communication has reached us. That's what I'm telling you.
All right, okay. Clark,
so I'm still insisting that's a motion I moved here and it was passed.
Yeah, in fact, it was agreed on, if I remember well. And the table office should ensure that all communications are distributed to members. The office of the clerk will follow up. Honorable members, I want to tap them on the back. It looks like there are no corrections made on this record of votes and proceedings. Congratulations. Honorable member, it has been moved and seconded that the record of votes and proceedings of the National Assembly sitting of Friday, 17 November 2023 be approved without amendments. Those in favor, please say aye. Those not in favor, please say no. The ayes have it. Clerk, can we continue?
Consolidated report of the Finance and Public Accounts Committee on the committee's consideration of the 2024 estimates of revenue and expenditure of the Republic of the Gambia, as well as debate on the 2024 estimate of revenue and expenditure of the Republic of the Gambia, 1st January to 31st December 2024, both days inclusive.
Speaker, observation before you go further.
Central Badu, what is it?
Yes, thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, in your introductory remarks, you made mention that the Honorable Finance Minister led a report, a budget before us, and that budget had series of errors, if I could hear you well. And that was the budget book that we went through at the retreat, and this was what we used at our committee level too. And this was what we submitted, the work that we have done, we submitted to FPAC. Now, if FPAC is coming to give us a report on a budget that has series of mistakes, I don't think we need to, in fact, listen to FPAC to give us any narration, but rather to work on the new one that has been submitted to us. Either we have a day engagement or two on that. But I don't think at this moment we can allow FPAC to give us a report on a book that has been found as error.
Honorable member, are you sure you are in contact with FPAC? Are you sure that you are in contact with
Now,
FPAC?
the report that has been submitted by FPAC too, by looking at it, there are a lot of conflict figures.
No, Honorable. Your comments, are you in contact with FPAC to know if they are using the old copies which had mistakes, or they have been given corrected copies?
Honorable Speaker, as you said, these are the copies that has been circulated to us. And we work as committees. And we made our submission to FPAC from the old copy that you said have errors. This is what I'm saying. So whether I speak with them or not, it's the documents that speak.
I agree with you, but you see, those documents could still be corrected by FPAC. It's just a correction of mistakes. It can be corrected. So, but what I'm saying is, in fact, before those statements are made, you could have consulted FPAC, and they will have advised or told you, and then you will take in the floor. FPAC, can you, where is the chairman? FPAC, can we have you?
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. For the information of the August Assembly, the FPAC received a letter from the Minister of Finance. I beg to read the letter. To the Clerk, National Assembly Building, dear Clerk, submission of draft estimate of revenues and expenditures for 2024. The 21st November 2023. I write to inform you that there was an error with printing of draft estimate of revenues and expenditures. A final decision was taken to incorporate the comments of Cabinet following their deliberations on the draft budget on Wednesday, 15th November 2023. The revised estimate with amendments was submitted to GBBC on Thursday, 16th November 2023. Due to limited time constraints, the risk of human errors is likely to happen. It is important to note that two versions of the draft budget were shared with GBC, but they mistakenly printed out the first versions that did not contain the comments of Cabinet. Please be informed that the budget statement delivered by the Honorable Minister during the laying of the draft estimate on Friday, 17 November 2020 contained the correct estimate of revenues and expenditures. Please find attached the amendments that were included in the revised draft estimate. Thank you for your usual support and understanding. This letter is informing that there was error. However, with the error on the text that was given, the soft copy that was also available and the minister's statements contain the correct version of the budget estimate at the time of the laying. Now what FPAC did was to advise them to provide the corrected hard copy to the plenary. And then the attachments that were advanced noted the under-mentioned institutions that were affected. It's not general. And these were Office of the President for only 2 budget lines, Upkeep of State Guard and Building Structures. Ministry of Defense for only 1 budget line, Food and Food Services. Ministry of Foreign Affairs, 2 budget lines, Contribution to Local Organization and Welfare of Gambians. Ministry of Health, Drugs, Dressing and Medical Supplies, as well as consultancy and hospitals, clinics and health facilities. Then Ministry of Environment, Contribution to International Organizations, and Ministry of Communication and Digital Economy, ICT infrastructure, hardware, network and facilities, and purchase of generator. Finally, the Ministry of Public Service, well, boreholes and water points. A total of 500 million was the difference when the corrections are done. So these were the institutions that were affected. At the level of the FPAC, all institutions that fall under our purview, we have done the necessary correction. Now, for other committees that were affected, we were made to understand these copies were given to them so that they can also take note of those errors. Now, the effective corrections can be done at the level of the consideration. When we are doing the consideration and the report presented by FPAC, you can look at it. If your ministry or your institution is affected, whatever correction you want to do, you can do the correction.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairman of FPAC and Minority Leader. Honorable Majority Leader, Member for Kantora. Thank
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I want to align myself with the submission made. The business before us here is to debate on the consolidated report of FPAC, having interacted with the ministry about the slight error that happened during the printout. And also noting that the debate or the speech by the minister was factored on the quoted version. And the soft copy presented to Parliament has the quoted version. The only error that happened was at the printed stage. So basically, having been engaged with FPAC and the title up, our debate is based on the submission on the report of the FPAC to the plenary. This is where we should focus on.
Honorable members, I am not opening a debate. I am not opening a debate. We have heard from the complaint from Central Badibu, and we have heard the response from the chairman of FPAC. I think what we can do now, honorable members, is as we move to the committee of the whole house, you will raise some of your concerns, and then Parliament would then be able, because all committee works are subject to plenary finalization. You see, I don't want a debate. If at most what we can do, because if I give, suggestion now. Yeah, but if I give you the floor, what it means is I will have to be continuing giving people floor, and that will not be. So one of two things.
It's not debate, please. It's not debate. Hear us, please. It's not.
If I hear you, that's your debate. That's your side of the story.
No, it's not debate that we are going into debate, but we are here to make correction. Please.
This is what I'm saying, honorable member of Central Badibu. I agree with you. You are trying to help us carve a way out. But if you have your opinion to way out, somebody will come out with an opinion the way out. And honorable, just be patient. And then that will lead us into a debate, which I don't want. At best, what I could do is to put it to a vote. But otherwise, I don't want a debate to take after all this time for us to take. So I want to hear from you. I want to hear from you, honorable member for Central Badibu. What is your opinion? What is the way forward?
All right. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, we are dealing with a document that is life of the Gambian people. Honorable Speaker, this document is our life. Everybody, Gambians, we are here to represent them. Majority leader cannot just say just a mistake. I'm very disappointed from him.
Please say, honorable, I told you this is not a debate. If you are going to attack people, I'm repeating, the person will have to defend. And you don't avoid that. What is the way forward?
Sit down.
Don't it's disappointing.
I'm saying that.
Honorable, Central Badibu. Please, Central Badibu. Sit down. Central Badibu. Sit down. You are not giving the floor.
Sit down. I am not giving the floor.
I am honorable member for Central Badibu.
Sit down.
I am giving the floor. Honorable member, Central Badibu.
Let him sit down. He's not giving the floor.
You are not to tell him to sit down.
Yes, but he should sit down.
No, keep quiet first.
Sit down.
No, on your order.
Sit down.
Withdraw that.
Sit down.
Honorable member, sit down too.
You need to sit down.
Sit down. Majority, sit down.
I want to sit down of your mind. You are not giving floor. You are not giving floor.
Get out. Central Badibu. Please. Central Badibu. Central Badibu. Central Badibu. You are the cause of the problem. I don't like people who like to misbehave indefinitely as matured as you are. I have given you an opportunity out of many not to create confusion. No, listen, just listen, please. No, just listen. I asked you not to, no debate. If you talk and then comment and attack people, what do you expect? No, you are attacking somebody. No. I told you, honorable member, Central Badibu, I told you beforehand, I'm not encouraging debate. And I told you beforehand, the best we can do is to make a determination by vote. I gave you a chance because you raised the issue to carve a way forward. You came out blaming people. I'm not giving you a chance again. Not again. Honorable Minority Leader, Member FPAC, are you satisfied with your report that your report is born out of the corrections made, or is a report based on false figures?
For FPAC, all the institutions that are under us, we have done the necessary correction because we got this information in advance and we work according to that. And we were informed that the said institutions also will be given the copies for them to act on. And I can, the report that we got from all the institutions, we have not seen any abnormality.
Motion.
Honorable members,
Motion.
hearing the member for the chairman of FPAC.
Motion.
Somebody is shouting at the end there. Huh? Yeah, okay. So, honorable members, as I said, FPAC report is to be tabled. And FPAC has just told us that their report is born out of the correct figures. Now, if other members or committees find out in the report at the committee stage that the figures they gave are different, they can come out with it. I therefore now call
Motion. He's not putting any vote.
He's coming to do that.
No, he's calling you to come and read.
Listen to me.
Honorable members, the 2024 estimates of revenue and expenditure was tabled by the Honorable Minister for Finance and Economic Affairs. And seconded by the Deputy Majority Leader and Member for Old Yundum constituency on the 17th of November 2023. We are to commence the debate on the said draft estimates. In view of that, may I now call on the Honorable Chairperson of FPAC to table the consolidated report in accordance with Orders 84-2B for the consideration and debate proper on the 2024 estimates of revenue and expenditure of the Republic of the Gambia. Honorable Chairperson, please.
Point of order.
Can I hear your point of order?
53K. A motion. I'm moving a motion. Understanding order, yes?
No, 53, you are saying a point. Honorable, no arguments, please. You are making a point of order. And now you are telling me you are moving a motion. You cannot do that.
Honorable Speaker,
a point of order means something abnormal has happened, not within the standing orders. And that's what you want to identify and make reference to. Honorable it's not Speaker, an intent to do something. Honorable Majority Leader, Minority Leader, can you continue?
Honorable Speaker, motion. Honorable Speaker, point of order that I'm raising, the point of order will give, you decide either to give me right to raise up with motion. So I'm on track. 53K is saying that before I rise on motion, I have to call your attention. And this is what I'm doing. So that's why I say point of order. Point of order is not only when you want to address issue. No, you can call the attention of the Speaker.
No, Honorable, you are wrong. That is not correct. A point of order.
I'm not wrong.
A point of order is when something is going out of order.
Of course.
Honorable Speaker, point of order. Honorable Speaker, point of order. Honorable. No. Honorable Speaker, point of order. Honorable member for Central Balibu. A point of order is something that is going out of order. And two, when there is a point of order and there is a ruling right or wrong, that is, well, this is what I'm saying, is either not in order.
Is I want to raise up a motion. You refuse. So that's why I'm calling your attention to this section of the standing order.
Honorable, your greatest problem is you don't want to respect the care, and two, you like to argue unnecessarily. You see, even if I am wrong, just hold on, please. Please. No, even if I am wrong as Speaker, there is a way to address it. Because my ruling is final. No, yes, if it is not in order, Honorable, listen, if it is not in order, you have a process to go through. It's not to challenge me.
Point of order, Honorable Speaker. Point of order.
No, that's not the process.
No,
that is not the process.
Point of order, Honorable Speaker.
What I'm saying is, if the Speaker is wrong, you have a way of making it right. It's not to challenge it. You cannot challenge it. Honorable member for Bikama North and chairman of FPAC.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Speaker, motion.
Consolidated report.
You should listen to people because they don't listen to this report when we have different reports. When we have different books. We don't know which book are we dealing with.
Consideration of the 2024
motion
of revenue and expenditure of the
Honorable Speaker
of the Gambia.
Honorable Speaker.
November 2023. The second page.
Point of order, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Speaker.
Contents.
Point of order.
And the table of content continue in the second page. The third page, honorable members, refer to introduction in accordance with section 152
honorable member
of the 1977 Constitution.
There is somebody speaking on the floor.
The Minister of Finance and Economic Affairs has tabled for consideration and approval by the National Assembly the estimate of revenues, recurrent development expenditures for the Republic of the Gambia for the fiscal year 2024 on Friday, 17 November 2023. Standing orders 81-1, 81, 84-1, and 2 mandate committees of the National Assembly to scrutinize and make recommendations on the draft estimate of revenue and expenditure. The findings of the various committees should be submitted to the Finance and Public Accounts Committee, FPAC, to lay a consolidated report together with a motion for debate. It is against this background that the Finance and Public Accounts Committee, FPAC, prepared this consolidated report on the submission of various committees for the consideration of the plenary. The methodology in scrutinizing the budget for the NBEs, the committees were guided by the resolution adopted by the National Assembly during its pre-budget retreat, that is, to consider reducing the budget deficit of 4.45 billion, representing 2.55% of the nominal GDP, and savings made should be reallocated to sectors. However, committees were cautioned not to reduce budget lines that could have negative impact on the operation of the government. Honorable Minister, the findings. The committees met with the various ministries, departments, and agencies to defend their submission as per estimate. MBAs highlighted resource gap in comparison with their mandates. Almost all budget entities carry out the limited monthly cash allocations, which directly impacted their productivity. However, considering the limited resource envelope, coupled with the 4.45 billion budget deficit, committees could not make significant changes on the budget. Based on submission from the various committees, FPAC recommends that the Assembly do consider and approve the estimate of revenue and expenditure of the government for the fiscal year 2024 as amended and detailed below. Finance and Public Accounts Committee, FPAC. The Ministry of Finance, during its tabling of the estimate before FPAC, indicated errors from the submission made to the National Assembly on some budget entities and implore on FPAC to take note of the revised submission. See Appendix 1 for details. The Office of the President, there was no savings under the OP's budget. However, the committee recommends reallocation to priority budget line as indicated on the attack addendum. Equally, there was no savings under OVP's budget. However, the committee recommends reallocations to priority budget line as indicated on the attack addendum. National Assembly, the committee recommends a total reduction of 15,800,000 from the National Assembly's budget. Furthermore, the committee recommends reallocations to priority budget lines as indicated on the attached addendum. For Judiciary, the committee recommends a total reduction of 74,300,000 from the judicial submission. The committee recommends some reallocation to priority budget lines as indicated in the attack addendum. The Independent Electoral Commission, IEC, the committee recommends a total reduction of 48,582,500 from the IEC's budget. Furthermore, the committee recommends reallocation to priority budget lines as indicated on the attack addendum. And for the National Audit Office, the committee recommends a total reduction of 36,583,000 and from the submission of NAO, and then recommends reallocation to priority budget line as indicated in the addendum. Minister of Finance and Economic Affairs, honorable members, I want to refer you to the page that is earlier on submitted regarding the correction being made on that. Page 5. The Minister of Finance and Economic Affairs. The committee recommends a total reduction of 83,554,000 from the Ministry's budget, and then recommends reallocation to priority budget as indicated. And for Ombudsman, the committee recommends a total reduction of 14,470,000 and recommends reallocation to priority budget lines. Sorry. The committee recommends a total reduction of 1,470,000. I'm sorry for that. And recommends relocation to priority budget line. And then under Ombudsman, there should be centralized service where the committee recommends a total reduction of 220 and then further recommends relocation to priority budget lines. Then we continue with the text proper. The Ministry of Public Service, the Administrative Reforms and Policy Coordination. There was no saving under the Ministry's budget. However, the committee recommends relocation to priority budget as indicated in the attack addendum. And then for the Standing Committee on Defense and Security, Ministry of Defense, there was no saving under the Ministry's budget, and the committee recommends relocation to priority budget lines indicated in the addendum. The committee recommends that the Ministry of Defense revise the range and rate ceiling for GAF officers to 150,000 maximum to cater for more officers. For the Ministry of Interior, there was no saving under the budget, and then the committee recommends relocation to priority budget indicated in the attack addendum. And then they further recommend that 3,575,000 to be allocated to arms and ammunition from the amount that was saved from the ministry's budget. Select Committee on Tourism, Culture, Youth and Sports. Under Ministry of Tourism and Culture, no reduction or reallocation on the ministry's budget. However, the committee recommends to approve the budget as submitted by the ministry and make the further recommendation that to allocate some funds to the ministry to procure vehicle and furniture for the proposed new Deputy Permanent Secretary too. On the Ministry of Youth and Sports, there was no saving made under the ministry's budget, and the committee recommends relocation to priority budget lines as indicated in the addendum, and further recommends to reallocate 10 million from the budget line of the sporting material to purchase vehicles for the Honorable Ministry's Permanent Secretary and Deputy Permanent Secretary Technical. For the Standing Committee on Foreign Affairs, for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, International Cooperation and Gambians Abroad, the committee recommends a total reduction of 4,092,000 from the ministry's budget. However, the committee further recommends relocation to priority budget line and as indicated on the addendum. For the Standing Committee on Human Rights and Constitutional Matters, for the Ministry of Justice, there was no saving made under the ministry's budget, and the committee recommends relocation to priority budget lines as indicated on the addendum. And the National Human Rights Commission, there was no reduction or reallocation on the commission's budget, and the committee recommends to approve the budget as submitted by the commission, and further recommends that the budget estimate, the submission of the commission should be maintained by the Ministry of Finance to support its operation. Then for the Select Committee on Regional Government, Lands and Ombudsman and IEC, the Ministry of Land and Regional Government, there was no savings made under the ministry's budget. However, the committee recommends reallocation to priority budget line as indicated on the attached addendum, and recommends, one, that the remuneration of the traditional chiefs be upgraded to suit their status so as to mitigate the challenges they are facing. Two, that the mobility constraint of the traditional chiefs be looked into. Therefore, there is a need to provide each chief a vehicle. That the salary for the badge messengers of the chiefs should be promulgated. And for the Select Committee on Environment, Sustainable Development and NGO Affairs, the Ministry of Environment, Climate Change and Wildlife, there was no savings under the ministry's budget. However, the committee recommends reallocations to priority budget line as indicated on the attached addendum, and made the following recommendations. One, that the government should review the vehicle policy that was adopted by the National Assembly and restrict the officials entitled to official vehicles to only the minister and the permanent secretary. All other officials should be provided with a loan facility to purchase their own vehicles to be deducted on a monthly basis. That the full allocation should be determined and made uniform for all ministers and peers. That the government should come up with an air ticketing policy for the procurement of airfares for MDAs. And the Ministry of Fisheries and Water Resources, there was no savings under the ministry's budget, and the committee recommends reallocation to priority budget lines as indicated on the attached addendum. The Ministry of Petroleum and Energy, no reduction or reallocation on the ministry's budget, and the committee recommends that the budget be approved as submitted. On Select Committee on Agriculture, Rural Development, the Ministry of Agriculture, there was no saving under the ministry's budget. However, the committee recommends reallocations to priority budget line as indicated on the attached addendum. For the Select Committee on Monitoring of Government's Budget, the Ministry of Transport, Works and Infrastructure, there was no savings under the ministry's budget. However, the committee recommends reallocation to priority budget lines as indicated on the attached addendum, and that all statutory agreements on the disbursement of interim payment certificates should be honored to avoid further financial penalties on the government. The committee recommends. Select Committee on Trade Regional Integration. For the Ministry of Trade, Regional Integration and Employment, the committee recommends a total reduction of 669,493 from the ministry's budget and recommends reallocation to priority budget lines as indicated in the addendum. And the Select Committee on Education, Training and ICT, the Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education, there was no savings on the ministry's budget. However, the committee recommends reallocation to priority budget lines as indicated on the attached addendum. And for the Ministry of Information, the ministry did not appear before the committee to defend its budget, and therefore the committee did not review its budget. The Ministry of Higher Education, Research, Science and Technology, there was no savings on the ministry's budget. However, the committee recommends reallocations to priority budget lines as indicated on the addendum, and recommends that for scholarship for the tertiary education should be wholly handled by the ministry and the budget lines augmented to ensure areas owed to the University of the Gambia and the Gambia College and GTI are settled. So the training budget line under all ministries should be consolidated under PMOs so that they can manage the training of the civil servant across all ministries. And 3, the education levy collected by GRA should be distributed between NAGA and the Ministry of Higher Education for the support of Tibet, which is expanding yearly. And 4, there is a need to review the entire membership to international organization by the government and centralized where possible, as ministries and other agencies each have a special budget line, and these memberships must be defined and approved by an authority based on the value we get. And 5, the research budget lines need to centralize and managed by the Ministry of Higher Education. Research is under their purview. At present, it seems most ministries have a budget line called research, but we can't tell what it is being used for. The Ministry of Communications and Digital Economy, the committee recommends that the ministry's budget be approved as submitted. And for the Select Committee on Health, Disaster, Refugees and Humanitarian Relief, for the Ministry of Health, there was no saving on the ministry's budget. However, the committee recommends the allocation to the priority budget lines as indicated on the attached addendum. Recommendations, the committee further recommends as follows. 1, that the Ministry of Finance create development budget line for the hospitals, and the Ministry of Finance provide funds for operation of National Health Insurance and Authority. And 3, that the Ministry of Finance should ensure that all councils under the Ministry of Health should receive their subvention as budgeted for the estimate. The Select Committee on Gender, Children, Social Welfare, the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Welfare, there was no savings on the ministry's budget. However, the committee recommends reallocations to priority budget lines as indicated on the attached addendum. Honorable members, we further provide you the summary of the total savings. Ministry of Finance and Economic Affairs, 83,554,000. Centralized Service, 220 million. The National Assembly, 15,800. The Judiciary, 74,300. National Audit Office, 36,583,000. Independent Electoral Commission, 48,582,500. Ombudsman, 1,470,000. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs, International Cooperation and Gambians Abroad, 4,092,000. And the Ministry of Trade, Regional Integration and Employment, 669,493. Conclusion and recommendation. Following the careful review of the budget submissions from the various institutions, ministries, departments, and agencies, MDAs, and having carefully considered the various recommendations put forward by the various committees, noting that the government continue to operate with a deficit of 4.45 billion and FPAC's commitment to reduce the budget deficit without adversely affecting the operation of the MDAs, the committee therefore recommends as follows. 1. The Ministry of Finance urgently implement a revenue review across government institutions, particularly self-raised revenues by the MDAs to improve on domestic revenue mobilization and furnish FPAC on its finding. 2. The National Audit Office consider conducting a revenue audit across the MDAs. 3. That the National Assembly consider separating finance as a stand-alone committee from FPAC to focus on budget and other related financial matters. 4. That Ministry of Finance critically consider improving the revenue base, particularly maximizing on the extractive industry and fisheries sectors. 5. That the total reduction made should be maintained towards reducing the deficit. And 6. That the government should honor its contractual obligations with its institutions to avoid accumulation debts. And finally, 7. That going forward, the Ministry of Finance must not change the submitted budget of the independent institutions as dictated by the Constitution. On that, Honorable Speaker, I beg to submit. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson of FPAC. Any second honorable members? Honorable Member for Brikama South.
Thank you so much, Honorable Speaker. I rise to second the motion. And equally, I want to seize this opportunity to take part in the debate. Honorable Speaker, the business before us is to debate on the FPAC report and that of the budget submitted to us by the Minister. If you look at the draft estimate of the 2024, there are areas of concern that I want to take part and inquire from the Minister, and also to talk about certain areas, particularly when you look at the revenue component, both tax and non-tax component of the 2024 estimate. Honorable Speaker, the document the Honorable Minister presented to us on the tax and non-tax revenue, there is a significant jump in terms of revenue, a tune of 5 billion. I am a little bit worried whether actually this will be attainable. Sometimes we have an issue with regards to the budget, particularly if the budget is not realistic. We find it very difficult to deliver to the people in terms of the development component. One significant area, since the budget is approved based on a component and bilateral has been done by the Ministry of Finance and respective MDAs. Upon approval, upon table to the Parliament and is approved, we expect that's a budget line. So if there is a disparity gap, it's always a problem. And I know for the ministries, they prepare their annual activity plan. So on monthly basis or quarterly basis, they expect a disbursement for implementation. And if there is an issue of the problem with the collection, you don't expect them to implement to the latter. There is one thing we need to understand. From the SDG, this also trickles down to the NDP. From the NDP, it goes to the ministries. And the ministries have their specific blueprint that will address a fundamental problem of the country. So if there is a question of the realistic nature of the budget, this really affects our development and the service delivery. So I want the minister to explain the significant jump from 2023 to 2024, 5 billion, whether this is actually attainable. And bilateral is done based on this and is going to be approved based on this, whether that will really impact as expected. Honorable Speaker, I want to inquire from the Honorable Minister. The state-owned enterprises in the 2023 budget constitute 360 million as dividend, and this time is completely zero. I don't know why, when actually there were a lot of performance contracts signed between some state-owned enterprises and the government. And the issue of the dividend is not forthcoming, I cannot understand. Since, in fact, we have enacted a law for a commission to be established. That is already established, they are functional. So we expect going forward, since they have contributed, because 250 is coming from the central bank, 100 million is coming from GPA and 10 million from GNPC. But right now it's 0-0. What is going on? This is something that we need an explanation why. And the other one I want to talk about, the issue of PE, the personal emolument. If you look at it, Honorable Minister, there is this increment from 6.1 to 7.43. I don't know what unplanned recruitment are going to take place, but how many people are we expecting? So this is a significant jump, more than $1 billion. So this is something that we have to look at it. And we need an explanation to convince the Gambian actually why this significant jump from 6.10 to 7.43. Honorable Speaker, I want to look at the issue of agricultural allocation. There is a significant, there is a slight improvement from the GLF component from 722 to 844 million. But even if you look at that, there is this 62 million for development, 782 for recurrent. But if you come to the entire budget line, where we have the total allocation for agriculture, it's like 2,563 million. I think this is a significant one. But primarily coming from the projects. Honorable Minister, I'm a little bit worried about who designed these projects. Is it the donors or the government? Are we taking part in designing of these projects? Particularly the operational cost versus the target beneficiary. And interestingly, I don't know whether you have an idea of these projects operating outside the main Ministry of Agriculture, under the central project coordinating unit. And this is where we have the problem. Even you, when you come to allocation, you think that all what they are having goes to the projects. And these projects, remember, are contracted by government, either in loans and grants for the Gambians. But implementing it outside with this type of operational cost, that is why a project will phase out. You cannot even discover a footprint of each of these projects. Only the fleet of vehicles that are going to be left. And this is a problem. And agriculture cannot be on a farm footing unless we take a drastic approach in order to bring it into the mainstream. And we take part, even if whereas it is coming, the design is done by the donors. We are only looking at our interests, whether this will impact positively for us to put food on the table. But if we don't do that, we forget about this issue. Because it's, in fact, it's constraining us. People are going to pay these loans that are brought in on behalf of agriculture. So, as a country, every stakeholder needs a specific approach to agri. We cannot say this is the settled practice. We have to change it. So, without changing it is a major problem. Because you have a lot of things that need to be corrected, especially when you come to these projects. A huge amount is spent. It's about 2 billion plus. That is spent on the agriculture. And up till today, how much are we importing to feed this nation? So this is something that we have to look at it. We bring it back to the mainstream agriculture. You have those people, look at the extension to farmer ratio. They are redundant, these things. And that is why there is this secondment. They will go and resign, they will go to the projects. When the project phase out, they come back. So let us maintain it in the main ministry and build up the capacity to monitor these things. And the monitoring should be everybody's business. Because a good chunk of loan comes to this area, and we have to look at it. Okay, even though there is a deduction for centralized service, I was looking at page, but the FPAC has worked on that. Honorable Minister, I think there is something also we need to understand. Before I move to, I just want to clear, under agriculture, in your statement, you let emphasis their contribution to GDP, that is 25%, but primarily coming from crops and those things. But if you come to the budget, especially 46 of page 46, where you have collecting agencies by different ministries, agriculture is contributing about, last year is about 2 million plus. But this particular year, there is only 300,000, and this is primarily coming from livestock. And livestock has been never mentioned in your statement. This is the second statement where livestock is mentioned, and it's the only performing sector in the agricultural sector. And there is, if you look at centralized service, you have this input subsidy that help to procure fertilizer and provide seeds. But the groundnut we are producing, when that groundnut that is procured by GGC, and this is exported outside, how much are we getting as foreign exchange? And that has to be captured. But this is never captured. It's only the livestock aspect that is already that is always captured on the budget. So we have to look at that. And in order to connect it to the foreign affairs issue, and if you look at the foreign service, we think a lot of money because it's always in billions, 1 point something million, sometimes 2 billion. But what is their impact? Why is it, what are they bringing in terms of scholarships? And again, what are we getting in terms of grant, in terms of loan? What is foreign affairs doing? And this needs to be fully communicated to the Gambia so that we can look at it if we want to prioritize more. Because these are areas that we have to make sure that we even go for an inventory and look at it, every foreign service, what is their impact in terms of performance. They need to be known. Because sometimes if you want to do these things, members will have a different thought because they are not directly dealing with the ministry. But actually a lot is going on outside there. But we have to definitely convince one another to know the impact. And Honorable Speaker, if you look at that of the Honorable Minister, if you look at the deficits, which is primarily going to be financed through domestic borrowing, though there is a significant attempt to reduce it, but if you look at it compared to 2023, that is 2.7 billion, that is financed through domestic borrowing. But in 2024, it's about 3.27 billion. So this is an area where we have to look at it. How do we avoid these things? We expect, because this domestic borrowing component constrains the citizenry, particularly the civil and the public service. How do we empower the private sector? Because currently the only player in the economy is the government. So the private sector don't have the right capacity. But if we keep on selling T-bills through domestic borrowing, the commercial banks sit at their comfort zones at the end of their period, either 6 or 1 year, they get their millions without doing anything. So if you go there as a civil servant, you want to take a loan to invest, you find it very difficult. The interest rates are high. And it's not only that, they also demand collateral, like these are title deals of your compounds. If you fail, you end up losing those compounds. So how can we grow the private sector? These are things that is very, very, very worrying. And we have to work on this thing and avoid it completely. We know we have the potential. And since we have this jump from the total revenue, what you are asking, the GRA to collect from 17 billion to 22 billion. It's a significant jump. And how do you measure this? how do you know that they have the capacity to collect these things? So those are things that we need to understand very well. Because if you look at the jump, it's very high. And annually, we are increasing these things. But we need to know the actual revenue potential of this country, without which we'll have a problem. Finally, Honorable Minister, I definitely want you to look at this particular area as far as the budget structure is concerned. Annually, we are battling to sustain our economy, year in, year out. Are you thinking, as the principal advisor to the president, to advise him on issues pertaining to economic and finance of this country? Because if you look at it, why can't we go in for improvement of our economy so that we can liquidate the economy to allow more recruitment, especially in the youthful sector, to avoid this backward syndrome? Because these are issues. There is nobody in this country who can advise. Are you in agreement that we have to grow from struggling to maintain our economy and improve upon it by investing into the productive sector, to make the economy liquid, to do more recruitment, to avoid, so that this can avoid these things. It can avoid the issue of illegal migration. There is nobody, and you have your permanent secretaries that are very much aware of this thing. So you are there to advise the president. Are you in any way, or do you have this at the back of your mind that you must advise the president so that next time we can avoid this type of deficits and make sure that we go in for the actual development of our economy? Developmental budgeting should come into play. So this is what I want to challenge you finally before I sit. So I want to challenge you to advise the president going forward, particularly 2025. Let us completely forget about this budget structure and come out with a new structure that will definitely provide our economy to be liquid by investing into the productive sector. I thank you, Honorable Speaker. I beg to take my seat. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member for Bikama South. Honorable members, it has been moved and seconded that this August Assembly do consider the consolidated report of the Finance and Public Accounts on the findings and recommendations of committees of the National Assembly on the 2024 estimates of revenue and expenditure of the Republic of the Gambia for the period 1st to 31st December 2024. Those in favor, please say aye. Those not in favor, please say no. The ayes have it. Honorable members, at this juncture, I will now invite any honorable members who wishes to take part in the debate to raise his or her constituency tag to be recorded and be given the floor to speak. However, before allowing any honorable member to take the floor, I want to remind ourselves of the scope of the debate. Under Order 31 of the Standing Orders, which reads, debate upon any motion or amendment to a motion, or upon any bill, part of a bill or amendment to a bill, shall be relevant thereto, except in the case for motion for the debate on the adjournment of the Assembly. In addition, Order 86.7 of the same standing orders do guide us on how to debate on the annual estimates. And it reads, the debate on the motion shall be confined to the estimates and the explanatory statement and the reported findings and recommendations of the Assembly committees and the Finance and Public Accounts Committee's consolidated report of the Assembly committees, consideration of the draft budget. I therefore appeal to honorable members to respect and observe the said provisions of our own standing orders. I thank you very much. May I now invite the Honorable Member for Old Yundum constituency to have the floor.
Thank you so much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, we are dealing with the 2024 budget estimate for the Gambia. As you alluded in, on the 17th of November, when the Minister tabled the budget here, we went out for a retreat. Experts were there to give us information about all the budget or ministries that are highlighted in the budget. And then we were able to ask as many questions as we could to acquaint ourselves with the figures that were allocated for each ministry and what those figures are for. I think from the retreat, particularly me, I was convinced with a lot of budget line that we scrutinized during the retreat. And then the job of FPAC has even given me more, confidence that a lot has been done, given the fact that we were trying to cut the deficit of the Gambia from 4.4 billion. The amount that is deducted from the entire budget from FPAC, we commend you for that good job. At least it's not much, but it has reduced something from the deficit. Because we all know the budget that we have, even though the deficit is high, but that is what Gambia can have as well. We can have more, but when we want to have more, it means we have to increase more taxes, and that becomes a problem for us. So I am convinced in that area. But Honorable Speaker, I have to raise this concern because the Minister is here. I concur with my colleague, member for Brikama South, with regards to the budget structure of the Gambia. I think the issue of incremental budgeting, we need to look at it very critically, because that is denying a lot of critical ministries to get the allocation that they require. A ministry like Youth and Sports, maybe in the past it must have been a dormant ministry, but currently it's a critical ministry as far as our governance is concerned. We need to be prepared to resource this ministry. Whether they have good programs or not, we will engage them more. But if you look at the subvented institutions that they are giving monies to, have very critical programs for the young people in this country. But a meager resource is allocated for the ministry for those subvented institutions, and I think we need to consider that. Institutions like National Youth Council, which is very important for our young people. We all know their job. We have had a series of engagement with them on their activity reports and their financial statements. But if you look at the programs that they have, we cannot fund them. Not because we cannot, but because we are not giving them adequate resources to be able to fund those programs. So I think we need to consider those areas. National Youth Service Scheme, that has just given back a new program. I think they also need more resources. NEDI also need more resources. Currently, they are, helping a lot of backward returnees. They are empowering young people in their businesses. So the amount that I am seeing for the other charges is very small, to be honest. It's very, very small. I mean, I think in whole, given the Ministry of Youth and Sport, 122 million is way below. It's way below. We are not expecting 122 million. We are expecting at least 200 million for the Ministry of Youth and Sports. In my own capacity, I'm not seeing any other ministry more important than this sector. The resources that we are giving them is way too small. And I think from this budget, 2025, we need to reconsider. We will do more advocacy to see that money is given to Minister of Youth and Sport, especially in 2024 when Gambia is going to African Cup of Nations. We have not seen anything in that budget line. How do we intend to support the national team to play in the AFCON? I understand the sports levy is there, but would that cater for the problems of the Gambia at the African Cup of Nations? We are playing volleyball, international competitions. No money is allocated for those sectors. So I think we need to re-strategize and see when we are putting money for Ministry of Youth and Sports. These are two sectors. The youth component is there, but the youth sector is also there. We give them more resources so that they can empower young people. Sports now is very lucrative. We have seen young people, becoming professionals, and they are getting something out of sports. But it has to start with us. We need to set the pace. We need to set the ground for them so that they can climb on the ladder and be where they want to be. But as far as I'm concerned, that area is very insignificant. I think If we cannot do much this budget, my chairperson and all other members in the youth committee, we need to start the advocacy now. We need to ensure that in 2025 budget, whether government like it or not, they need to have at least 200 million in their budget. They need to have programs for the young people. I mean, we are all youths. We are representing them in the parliament, but what are we giving them at the end of the day? I have been here for almost 7 years, but every year when I come, the budget line for the Minister of Youth and Sport is below 109 million, 111 million. That is where it is pegged. So, can you just allow me? The programs are there. What I'm saying is, the subvented institutions must be given more money because they have the programs. They have the program. The subvented institutions have the program. So we will have to increase the subvention to allow them to create more program for the young people. Not the ministry directly, because the ministry is just a coordinating ministry. So is the subvented institutions like National Sports Council, National Youth Council, NEDI, and other sectors, we need to give them more money. Those people have programs for the young people. That is where we need to put the focus on, and not the minister and permanent secretary per se. So, Honorable Speaker, Honorable Minister, that area I think we need to look at it. This budget probably might have passed because we have made a resolution, but 2025, come 2025, we will have to advocate for that even before the budget comes. And I want you to consider that before 2025, at least 175 million should be allocated for Minister of Youth and Sports. Honorable Speaker, with those few remarks, thank you so much.
Let me refer you all to Standing Order 21. Let's try and allow members contributing, give them peace to contribute their quota. Don't obstruct people. Please. I now invite the Honorable Member for Woodley East.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, we thank the Minister of Finance for coming up with this proposal. Again, which should help us to move this country. The objective is to move the country from where we are so that we'll be able to transform it to a better country. Not only for those who are here, but for the whole country. That should be our primary objective. And I believe the Honorable Minister is looking forward to that. Honorable Speaker, the Minister of Finance told us 2023 that the objective of the estimates or the budget was anchored on renewed commitment to strengthen domestic resource mobilization to support the provision of quality, essential services in agriculture, education, health, infrastructure development, to promote a more inclusive and resilient growth. That was last year. And that was the objective of the 2023 budget. So we are scrutinizing and we are playing oversight. We should be able to ask ourselves whether we are satisfied that that objective has been attained. Again, Honorable Speaker, the Honorable Minister told us that he has the same objective to actually reduce the deficit and to increase resource mobilization, domestic resource mobilization. Those are two areas that I could capture. But, Honorable Speaker, we know that if you really want to reduce budget deficit, you need to cut down on spending and find ways of raising revenue. And this should be a serious fiscal policy, that the objective is to reduce deficit, and then you must reduce expenditure. You must reduce spending. But we know if you don't reduce spending, whatever deficit you incur each year is added to the debt of the country, the national debt. And that's why throughout all these years, the deficits that we have been accumulating have been piling up and increasing the national debt. And as a result, the debt interest payment also continually increase. This is why we are now paying 7 billion or 7.5 billion as debt interest payment. If we had not put the amortization there, we would have put 5.11, according to the minister. But now it's 7.49 billion. So how do we control this? Can we say that this is really a plan that can sustain the debt? Can we say that this will be a sustained development process? I have my doubts on that. That's why I always ask for the trajectory that we are taking. Because since 2017, the ministers that come before us keep on saying we want to reduce deficit, we want to reduce expenditure. But every time we come here, we experience that they come with more expenditure than even the one that is laid before us. So we must factor that. Honorable Speaker, it is common sense that government spends more, if government spends more than it receives as income, it will incur deficit. And if your trade, external trade, your imports also outweigh your exports, you still incur deficit. So that should be the plan. How do we increase our income from exports? How do we maximize our gains from export? And how do we reduce the imports? If we cannot do that, then we are not solving the problem. We are just pushing the problem to the future generation. Honorable Speaker, according to the minister, the GDP ratio was 83% for 2022. But I believe now it has passed that. It is moving us to 100% of GDP. You can correct me. But if it is 100% of GDP, or even more, it means that we are not making progress. That is not making progress. That should always be reduced. One can argue that, it's not the amount of money that you mentioned because of inflation, because of this, but when it comes to percentages, they don't lie. So 100% or even 80% is still very high in terms of trying to regulate. Honorable Speaker, we are also told that the high interest rate on debt is as a result of the monetary policy committee rate of the central bank, which has risen to 17%. That's what we are told. If the interest rate is increased continually, how do we control inflation? And the minister wants to convince us that inflation too will be reduced, prices will go down. I don't know how that can happen. If the tax is increased by something like 20 or 24%, and then the interest rate at the central bank, MPC rate, is also increased. And this is what investors are going to borrow and then invest and then come back to sell to us, either in services or so. I don't see how we can reduce inflation in that. So that is something that we have to look at also. Now, if you look at the minister's statement on point 35, he said the deficit reduction strategy is anchored on robust domestic mobilization. Like I said, instead of tabling the assets, because assets recycling has been mentioned, but the agreement has not been brought here. So it means that it's embedded in the budget for approval. And my problem is, if it is not brought for approval and it is in the budget, we approve the budget, but then the agreement comes and we disagree when everything is factored in the income. How do we deal with that? Is that not going to distort the whole budget disbursement process? Because if you factor something which is huge and eventually is not approved, how do you actually disburse to other people? How do you make up the difference when it is not factored? So, now, if you look at the projected revenue, which stands in for 2024, is at 28.7 billion. And we have increased the expenditure to 34.9 billion. So which means the expenditure is, like I said, is increasing. And the deficit payment also is increasing. The interest rate is also shooting up. Now, if you look at from 1985 to date, we are doing the same budget process, same type of budget process. And it's leading us nowhere but to more and more debt and more interest payment. Because if you look at the interest payment now, it's more than health, education, and another ministry. We could put 3 ministries together. So if the objective is to make those ministries to be efficient in their services, but debt interest payment alone is covering all that, it's more than all the 3 ministries or sectors, then we can know that we are really falling into more and more problems. And that should be the responsibility of the minister to ensure that we reduce that. And I know this year is 7.5 billion debt interest payment. But we have also done some calculation to arrange with the donors or the lenders to push the payment. And those payments, we expect them to be mature maybe by next year or the year after that. So if we don't become prudent, it means that we can expect to pay more than 7.5 next year, or even maybe pay 10 billion as interest payment. Is that sustainable? It's not sustainable. So if it is not sustainable, then we have to start thinking about it. Now, how does the government intend to improve domestic revenue collection? He mentioned asset recycling. But even though he did not mention the Senegambia Bridge, I've not seen Senegambia Bridge there, but I know when you mention asset recycling, all of us will be thinking about Senegambia Bridge. So we may be able to collect something from Senegambia Bridge, but maybe in the next 25 years, according to the news that we've all had, we will not receive anything from Senegambia Bridge, or very little from Senegambia Bridge. So that is asset recycling. We should be able to cut our deficit to the extent that we'll be able to manage our economy, manage our expenditure without having to, mortgage our assets. That would be a better arrangement than mortgaging assets to be able to mobilize domestic revenue, be able to plow it back to some other places. I believe that would have been a better arrangement. But asset recycling, what we have to learn, really, Honorable Speaker, is that we must be able to learn to manage our own resources. Because by doing that, we are developing skills for our people. We are developing the skills of our people to be able to manage our own affairs. But as it stands now, you have your assets, you transfer it to some other company, they manage it, they get the knowledge of doing that, and your people will lose all that. So that is something that we'll have to do. When you do that, are you going to put our people there to ensure that they also learn side by side, so that even if those people go, we'll continue to do that on our own? Now, if we are talking about prudence, as the minister wants to convince us, I believe the example should come from the chief of state. But if you look at the budget of the chief of state, you see that most of the items are going up. For example, you see that in terms of allocation, we allocated, was allocated $591.5 million last year, but the Office of the President ends up spending more than $831.5 million. That's not the example that we want to see if we want to cut down on wastage of resources. We expect that example from the chief of state, but that's not a very good example. Two, we allocated 10 million for the president to meet the people. He could have gone once, he could have gone twice, but he ended up spending 25 million, and we are not yet in December, so it may even increase. That's also not a very good example. Now, it's the government that came up with the embargo on official travel to reduce cost. But the President's office was allocated 50 million for travel, but you end up spending $153.1 million instead of 50 million. So most of the items I see the actuals are always more than what was allocated for the president's office. And the same goes for the vice president's office also. Check all the items, most of the items, you will see the actuals are far more than what was allocated. That's not the example we are looking for. We are looking for an example from the chief of state so that all the other sectors can emulate that, so that we'll be able to reduce expenditure. Yes, Honorable Speaker, the revenue is expected to be increased by 24%. Can the minister tell us from which area would this revenue come from? We want to know exactly where this revenue will come from. We also, if you look at the revising the project grants downwards, which the minister mentioned, which was good, in my opinion, as a welcoming idea, but I believe we should do the same for the budget support. If we can revise the budget support, not to be too ambitious on budget support, because once you fail to receive any of this, it actually affects your disbursement, which will also derail the progress in project implementation. Because most of the time, the ministers will tell us, ministries or sectors will tell us, what we allocate for us, we just receive less than half of what you receive. And that is because of these projections, which were not reasonable. Also, Honorable Speaker, since we will have more time to scrutinize the budget next time, I believe we should ensure that wherever there is a budget suppression, we refuse that, as well as to ensure that we curtail expenditure. If you look at the budget, really, realistically, there are many places where there is suppression. We believe that what they could have collected, is more than what is being allocated. So if we can realistically look at the income of some of these other areas, help them to augment their revenue, that will also help us to really cut down on the deficit. Now, the overall capital expenditure has been decreased by 12%, according to the Honorable Minister. And according to him, that is as a result of disbursement from others, from donors. So it's the same. Capital expenditure is also very important. So if that is also curtailed, it means that it is going to really affect the objective of what we want to attain. Now, in terms of FPAC, FPAC did not review the budget of the Ministry of Information because the Ministry of Information did not come before FPAC. So I'm not sure whether that's a good practice. If they don't come before you, why don't you just take the opportunity to look at their budget? Education. They did not come. It's the education that did not come. And education has 3 or 4 billion. So if you don't look at it at all, I don't know. You want to say something? I thought you said information.
Chair, can my point? Huh? Because no, he wants to continue. So, observation, Honorable Speaker, if you allow. Okay. Thank you very much, the member for Woodley East. The Committee on Information actually reports to the Committee on Education. The Ministry of Information reports to the Committee on Education. But during the bilateral, they were scheduled but did not show up. So FPAC is just reporting as is indicated by the Committee on Education. So they did not report to FPAC, but they reported to the Committee on Education. And if Committee on Education is saying that they did not show up, so we didn't have any bilateral with them.
Yes, so it did not show up before the committee, and the committee also did not look at their budget. Is that a good practice? I think if they don't come, you look at their budget. And if you see anything anomaly, you correct the anomaly. But if you just discard it, it means that we are not doing our scrutiny as expected. Yes, also, IEC. You said you made some cuttings from the IEC. I need a clarification on that, because we are told that IEC is part of the institutions that we are not supposed to touch. So if we touch them, would that not affect their operations? And we know we are preparing for another election cycle, and IEC has a lot of issues when we met with them. They are opening offices in the countryside, etc., etc. So also, the manpower budget is one area that we usually don't look at. I'm not sure whether FPAC has any opportunity to look at the manpower budget. When we go through it, sometimes we see a lot of anomalies. And also, we see that, Honorable Minister, what can we do about allowances overtaking salaries? Because we see that if you put the allowances together, usually in many places, they are more than the salaries. So I believe that that is another anomaly. We should reduce it. We should be able to reduce it. If we really want to take off, we should be able to reduce that. On that note, Honorable Speaker, I thank you for the time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member for Woolly East. I now invite the Honorable Member for Kiang West.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity. Today's deliberation debate, I think, is the most important session that we would foresee. As you always say, this document is the second most important document aside the Constitution. But members of Parliament, look at the flow of chambers at this point in time. It's definitely something that we should think about. Building a country takes a lot, and the members of Parliament should be at the forefront in doing this. We don't expect that in building this country, the economy, and anything about the health sector, the education, and all other sectors is what we should discuss today. Out of 58 members of Parliament, if you look at the flow of chambers, it's definitely not a good sign. And I think we should take the work of the country very serious. There is no other work a parliamentarian would have today which is more important than a budget debate. That's my view. There is no important that you would have at the level of constituency or however that would be more important than this budget debate. But however, I think that's a challenge to ourselves to definitely, sometimes when I ask myself, I said, in fact, oh, that study and all that I was doing, but is that the same thing others were doing? To look at the budget, the energy that we had at budget retreat? But however, Honorable Speaker, I have looked at few things in the budget which are very, very important for us to see. Honorable Speaker, I want to ask the Honorable Minister, if you look at the fiscal policies in terms of fiscal prudence, Honorable Minister is very good. Bringing in policies that ensures that we see leakages, we avoid revenue suppressions and all that. But his job is way beyond that. We have the economic growth component. This is why we have him as the Minister of Finance and Economic Affairs, so that we can be able to physically manage the resources that we generate to ensure that there is no suppression of revenue, we seal revenue leakages, as well as to build the economy either from the productive sector or we have it as private sector-driven economic growth. But when you look at our budget from 2013, from 2023, 2022, 2023, coming down to now, our budget is not building an economy for us. Just look at these statistics, Honorable Speaker. Our budget, the total development budget as per 2024 projection, both DLF and from grants and loans, this constitutes 40.16% of our budget, development budget. And our country is committing only 13.83% of this total. Less than half of our development is what we want to and we can do. And we expect the rest to be done through grants and loans. This is not sustainable. The development of our country cannot be 75% anchored on loans and grants. This is why, Honorable Minister, I want you to tell us the amount of the projected grants in 2023 that was realized. The total grants for 2023 as per the estimate was $16,325,803,000. How much was realized from this? We are in the 11th month of the year. How much was realized from this? And the loans, the total grant projection for 2024 is 12 billion. Now, for the realization when it comes to 2023, should be able to inform us to make a decision as far as grant is concerned in 2024. We should be able to know this. And remember, during the revision of the revised budget in 2022, what we were told, one of the reasons, not exactly the only reason, of revising the budget was non-realization of the international commitments. Those commitments were not realized. As a result, the budget has been revised. So, the major development of our country cannot be anchored on this. Cannot be anchored on this. Honorable Minister, this budget that we are looking at from 2022 to 2023 to date is not building an economy for us. It is something percent of our budget, GLF, is going into salaries and operations. Salaries and operations. It is something percent. It's going into that. We are committing only 13% of our GLF. Only 13% of our GLF into development. And if you look at some of the ministries, like Ministry of Water Resources, there has been an allocation of $10 million. Ministry of Fisheries and Water Resources, allocation of $10 million for the drilling of boreholes in the needy communities. Some of the communities are still crying for water. 57, 58 years after independence, our people are still crying for water. Our budget cannot take care of that for us. And we said we're developing as a country. That's not possible. It is unacceptable to see that 10 million allocated to certain ministries, to the Ministry of Water Resources in 2023 was not disbursed until 2 weeks back, and what was disbursed was only $3.6 million. 58 years after independence, people are still crying for water. Water to drink and cook. Honorable Minister, that is unacceptable. And we want to see that this fund was disbursed. But only 3.6 million is what was disbursed in this month, November.
tell us what was the reason for this delay? Honorable Minister, Honorable Speaker, the total budget deficit for 2023 was 3.9 billion. Honorable Speaker, for the total budget deficit as projected in 2024 is 4.4 billion. The higher the deficit, the more we go for loan. The more loans we take, the higher our debts. And this has implications on the debt interest payment. So we need to look at this. Honorable Minister, Honorable Speaker is presenting us a budget. The money that we don't have. And this, we say this is what we want. And how do we expect to get the rest? This is what I want, and this is what we want to do, but we don't have the money. Man, if we need to use 29 billion, let Honorable Speaker give us 29, Honorable Minister give us 29 billion. This is what we need. 29 billion, this is what we need, and this is what we can have. But why are we giving that is 29 billion when GRA can only generate less than 20 billion? Where do we get the rest from? That is a question. Honorable Speaker, when you look at tax revenue as per 2024 projection is 17.2 billion. Tax revenue is 17.2 billion. In 2023, tax revenue as per 2023 projection was 13.9 billion. This is a huge jump. What has changed? What economic activity has changed in the country that is going to help us to realize this? And as per your projection, what are the actuals? Because in the statement of the Honorable Minister, it was that in the first 3 quarters, as per the projection, of 9-point-something billion, they were able to get, GRA was able to collect 10.4 billion. What causes this? What has actually changed? Was there any economic activity that changed within the period that leads to an increment in this revenue, as per you projected in the first 3 quarters to collect 9 billion plus, and you went to collect 10.4 billion? I don't want to accuse by saying there was a revenue suppression. No, I don't want to do that. But we would definitely want to know what has changed that leads to this increment. And what economic activity has changed that you hope for, that will help us to realize tax revenue from 13 billion in 2023 to 17 billion. We have to know that. We have to know whether we will be able to get this or not. What investment has changed? What improvement do you have in the productive sector? We want Honorable Minister to definitely explain this to us, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, if you look at the actuals that has been disbursed per each ministry, the actual that has been disbursed per each ministry in 2023, as a date, some are at 38%, 38% disbursement to these ministries. And we have 1 month to go. And the budgets of these very ministries are increased come 2024. But they are only able to get less than 50% of the allocation in November in this year. So how do we expect to give them more of this? Where are we going to get the funds from? Honorable Minister, I want to ask a question, Honorable Speaker. We don't have oil yet. We don't know if we have it. Our oil and diamond is our water, either the underground water and our river Gambia, which is endowed with fresh water. The foreign investors that are around the coast, that are using our river water, how much revenue do we generate from this? Because the more they harvest the fresh water from the river, the more the salt water intrudes our farmlands. And when that happens, then we will end up abandoning those farmlands for them, those rice fields for them. So what do we get from them? And they are harvesting these waters from the river. They are harvesting fresh waters from the river. Go around Sierra, this is happening there. Foreign investors that are having gardens and others that are drilling our underground water, what do we get from them? Is the Ministry of Water Resources getting something from this water drilling? Because our underground water, we cannot say it's forever. It can be exhausted. There are some countries their underground waters are not good. Some are about exhausted. So what are we getting from this? They're having heavy boreholes. This should be an avenue of generating resources for this country. We want to know whether we generate resources from these waters that these people harvest from our rivers to use on their agricultural purposes, and those that are also using boreholes, heavy boreholes, to drill underground water. What revenue do we generate from this? Honorable Speaker, Fisheries Development Fund. I want Honorable Minister to tell us about the Fisheries Development Fund, the way of disbursement of the Fisheries Development Fund, and how much has been disbursed into the development of the fisheries sector. For the Honorable Minister to tell us about the Fisheries Development Fund and how much has been disbursed for the development of the fisheries sector. Honorable Speaker, I also want to know, because the fees for the toll bridges is put in a lump sum, because Honorable Minister is bringing a policy for asset recycling of the Senegambia bridge, so it would be prudent if we know the actual collection of revenue from Senegambia bridge annually, then we can make a decision as members of parliament. But this is put in a lump sum where the toll bridges are, so we will be able to know the disintegrated figure so that we know how much is generated from the Senegambia bridge, then we can take an informed decision as per recycling of the bridge, and that can build our economy. Because if you recycle the bridge, you have $100 million today. Are you going to pump that into the productive sector to build your economy, or are you going to take it back to the services to fund your recurrent and other things? We are just going to finish the money, but it's not going to generate anything for us. So we should be sure of what you do with the fund when you want to recycle the bridge, and how much you get from this bridge annually. We should be able to ascertain that to make an informed decision about the recycling process. Honorable Speaker, mining and quarrying is another issue that we should look at. Mining and quarrying should be a productive sector for us. If Minister of Petroleum or Geology Department is taking good care of the environment for us. People are mining everywhere in the country. How much do we get from this? Do we have an effective resource management as far as mining and quarrying is concerned? Because it helps us to generate funds. When it gets to the fisheries sector, if you look at the funds that we get from the EU Gambia Fishing Agreement for 2023 was zero. And for 2024, you have a projection about 900 million or something like that. If you can put me through, how much do we expect to get from this? These foreign investors are in our waters to do fishing. How much do we get from this? Are these good agreements for us? We don't just need funds, but we need to ensure that the fish population of our river is sustainable for us. You go to Tangier today, you want to buy fish, $400, $500, for the average Gambians cannot buy it. And the monies that we are getting from these people as tax is not also helping us. So we need to look at these agreements. And what is the plan from the ministry to ensure that all these things are looked at so that we manage the little resources that we have. Our resources is our water, our farmland, and our river. And it seems like people are using these things and we are not getting much from it. We cannot just say they have built us one cold store, and how much do they get if they build us one cold store? Honorable Speaker, I think there is need, if we want to sustainably manage the little resources that we have, to do a proper civil service audit. To do a proper civil service audit. Particularly these two institutions are mentioned without fear of contradiction. National Assembly and the Office of the President. To ensure that anybody, everyone who is on the payroll are doing the work, and they are not just there as staff or to come and sit at the end of the day, they go home and you pay us our money at the end of the month. It's not acceptable. It's unfair. Let's do a proper civil service audit. We know that anybody who is on the payroll of the government is working, and this is what the person does, and we look at the performance of that individual and we convert it to productivity. I think there is need to do that. The vehicle policy, as mentioned by FPAC, this is a very important policy that we should look at. We're giving vehicles to people. I think these examples should be set by us, ministers and members of parliament, permanent secretaries. We cannot give somebody a vehicle. We fuel your vehicle for you. We give you driver. We give you the security. We do the maintenance for you. It's not sustainable, and we are doing it. And I want the Honorable Minister to tell us the class of civil servants who are given vehicles, and we are doing this maintenance for them. How many vehicles are they giving? So that we can take an informed decision as a members of parliament to say, from a minister, anybody who is going to be given a vehicle, permanent secretary, deputy permanent secretary, you give it to you in a loan scheme, you service the loan 50%, you do your fuel, you do your maintenance, you take your driver, you're on. This is why I tell some of the drivers, when I was this, I told them, go and find a job, because it is not sustainable. Your drivers are going, your employers are going to release you one day, because the monies they are having cannot sustain them and their families. So they're going to release you. I told some of the drivers, they thought I was threatening them. No! Because this is how the budget is driving us. The little that you have might not be able to sustain you, much more maintaining a driver you employ. So we need to look at this. These are potential economic issues that we need to look at. If we want to have an economic that is sustainable, we have a country that is more peaceful, more prosperous, and more just. Economic sector must be built up so that our country rely on that, but not just only on tax. Honorable Minister, I want us to have a look at this. This forum should be a dialogue and a consultative discussion to see how best we build an economy of this country, because the way it is going, it is scary. It is very much scary. 86% is going into salaries and operations. Where do we want to develop? Honorable Minister, the government is expecting to spend $13 per each individual as per 2024 budget when it comes to health. When it comes to health, $13, that's what the budget projects. $13 per individual when it comes to health services in 2024, 12 months of the year. How much do you expect? $13, if you convert it as per central bank rate, is about $750. Taxi from Burfoot to Edward Francis Small Teaching Hospital is more than $1,000 if you have a patient. And when you go there, you need to also buy drugs. We need to look at this. So this is where somebody said, a budget is life and